Good day, and welcome to Del Valle Now. At the backdrop of the Washington Monument on a sunny day in August 2011, surrounded by Presidents Abraham Lincoln, Thomas Jefferson, and George Washington, now stands a king, the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King, Jr. The memorial for Reverend Dr. King is meant to stand to commemorate the life and work of this giant civil rights leader. Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated, the first intercollegiate fraternity for African American men, and also in which Dr. King was a member, spearheaded the effort to build this monument. And to help celebrate in this private dedication of the monument were men and women of every generation. His son, Martin Luther King III, was there. His daughter Bernice gave a stirring speech and shared in the moment with former New Orleans Mayor and CEO of the National Urban League, Mark Morial. Dr. King's good friend and former ambassador to the UN, Andrew Young, shared in this dedication with former U.S. Representative Connie Morella. Dr. Joe Lowry, a civil rights icon, shared in this day also with other civil rights icons like Jesse Jackson and Reverend Al Sharpton. The chairperson of the MLK Foundation, Harry Johnson, also spoke at this private event, and the general president of the fraternity, Skip Mason, with Wyatt T. Walker, were a part of the day. Yes, women and men from everywhere shared in the Alpha Phi Alpha dedication of the monument. The work to build the monument started 28 years prior to the erection of the monument. It began with a conversation between a few Alpha brothers. In fact, Margaret Mead said it best: "Never doubt what a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change in the world. Indeed, it is the only thing that ever has." Since its founding on December 4, 1906, by 7 undergraduate students at Cornell University, known as the Seven Jewels, Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity has dedicated itself to manly deeds, scholarship, and love for all mankind. According to Wikipedia, the fraternity has over 185,000 members and has been open to men of all races since 1940. Currently, there are more than 730 active chapters in the Americas, Africa, Europe, the Caribbean, and Asia. Today's show will highlight the private dedication by Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity of the Martin Luther King Jr. Monument.
And welcome to Del Valle Now. I'm your host, Al Hunter Jr., and with me are Richard Austin and Maurice Houston. Thank you. And brothers, I'd like to ask you, what was it like being down in D.C. for the unveiling?
Well, it was an exciting opportunity to actually see it. Me coming into the fraternity, only being a prophyte, which means 2 years within the organization, to see the level of brotherhood and the camaraderie that was in the place was just totally exciting and electrifying. I just was overwhelmed, just to tell you the truth. I was overwhelmed with the level of just what had been accomplished by my fraternity and what had taken place on that evening.
Right, Maurice, how about you? Did you have those same type of feelings?
I did. It was a fantastic opportunity for the fraternity, for the country, and for the civil rights movement. Just being there at that time, it was fantastic. If I could sum it up in one word, I would say fantastic.
Yeah. Now, both of you, of course, are members of Alpha Phi Alpha.
Absolutely.
And so where did you pledge at?
I pledged at Temple University in the city of Philadelphia. Spring 1987.
And you?
And I pledged here, right here in Philadelphia, as the alumni chapter, Zeta Omicron Lambda, just in 2010.
And for some of our viewers, can you kind of explain what it means to pledge a fraternity?
Sure. When we say pledging a fraternity, that's the process where you actually become a member. It's part of the initiation of the organization, being indoctrinated with the tenets of the organization, what Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity is about, learning the history of the organization and learning manly deeds scholarship. Those are two of the aims and goals of the organization, just really finding out about the organization, its history, its projects for the future, and just really understanding what fraternal life is all about.
So those were some of the things that enticed you to join this particular fraternity?
Go ahead, Mike.
I was going to say, not only just the history of the organization, but also the brotherhood. The fraternity, it's a group of men from various backgrounds, but we come together under one umbrella, the Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated umbrella. So it really links men from across the country and throughout the world under the auspices of Alpha Phi Alpha.
And Richard?
And I agree with him totally. Coming into the organization, just being in it for 2 years, I had always wanted to do it in college, but unfortunately we didn't have the opportunity from the standpoint of time, and it just seemed right from the perspective of being able to get together with brothers like-minded who were looking to do and drive some of similar goals and some of the same aspirations, in essence, of touching our youth, helping them to move from high school to college, and then hopefully into a career for themselves. So it was an exciting opportunity for me to connect at this particular time.
Right. Now, it's pretty obvious you guys have a relationship, made a connection with the fraternity. But I was wondering, what is Alpha Phi Alpha's connection with Martin Luther King?
Well, that's an obvious connection, I would think, with everyone who's watching. He is one of our brothers. He is a brother that pledged, as well as the rest of us who have done that from a perspective, and he came under the same auspice that we did from the standpoint of what Brother Maurice just spoke about as far as going through the rituals and the rites of becoming a brother of Alpha Phi Alpha.
And he really exemplifies a lot of the part of the mission that the fraternity talks about a lot too in his life and what he tried to do with his life. I was wondering, when you think about people like King and others who have joined your fraternity, you get what feelings do you get? Do you get a sense of pride about that, or is it a sense of motivation to make you want to do things in a like vein? I
think it's both of those adjectives that you just described. I mean, there is a sense of pride in the history of Alpha Phi Alpha, but then it also is about the camaraderie of individuals from different backgrounds coming together, moving one agenda, in essence, to edify and lift up a people. And like I said, coming to that particular event, the unveiling of his monument, it just brought it all back home to me again, why I chose this particular fraternity, because there are several others, but I just felt driven by Alpha Phi Alpha because it was the first, and again, for what it stands for.
And just to piggyback off of what Richard said, it's not only pride, but it's also a sense of purpose. The purpose to say that this is something that I can achieve. If you set goals, you can achieve goals. With the assistance of other people who are like-minded, the Brotherhood, Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity, as well as other individuals working for a collective goal. So just being a part of that particular weekend in Washington, D.C. was just fantastic because you saw a lot of that come together.
Right. And so let's take a look at a clip from a member of your fraternity who was out there with you as well, talking about his being at the dedication. And but let's take a listen, and we can talk about it after we see it.
Right. My name is Robert Bedford, and I'm here representing Mu Mu Lambda chapter in Chicago, Illinois. I am so excited about this opportunity whereby we are here to dedicate a monument to a man and his memory, Dr. Martin Luther King, Jr. This is more than a historic event. Some of us happen to remember at the tender age of 8 years of age when Dr. Martin Luther King, Jr. had died, and we were in the living room at my mother's house, and she was sharing with us what type of man this person was. Today, on behalf of Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated and all the money that was raised on behalf of us and so many others, we can't say enough about this moment. So many individuals were concerned that perhaps Hurricane Irene would take us to a place whereby we wouldn't be here, but we dared to travel for such an auspicious occasion. Martin is very interesting that even at this time, after all of these years, he still has impact on the lives of so many individuals. I can have yet to think of another figure in history that has had so much impact based on the life that he has lived, his legacy, and his leadership. We are just beyond excited to be here today, especially with all these men of Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated.
Now, the brother brought up a couple good points. He talked about the problem with Irene, the hurricane, with the dedication. But he also mentioned there's some challenges about whether it would get done or not, and the fundraising involved there. Tell me a little bit. It was $120 million, I think you guys, well, not only you, but folks were able to raise to get this monument built. What kind of things did you have to do to raise that kind of money?
Well, part of it was just brothers coming together, making individual pledges to the Martin Luther King Foundation. Part of it was going out, raising money from corporate sponsors and donors. But it was an opportunity for individuals to give $1, $5, $10, whatever was within your means to give. Mm-hmm. And that was just really part of what you experienced during that weekend, because mm-hmm. all of us came together for a collective goal. You heard the speaker talk briefly about Hurricane Irene, but during that particular time, we just weren't going to be turned around. It was almost like being a part of the civil rights movement once again, where we just wouldn't allow anything to stop us for that weekend, where we came together, we participated in the goals that we came there to set for that weekend. It was a fantastic time, just where you saw there on the tape, just sitting in that sea of black and old gold, and you saw individuals with the jacket on that I'm wearing today. It was just fantastic time for everyone.
Right. Now, who all was there aside from the brothers? Were there other people involved in this from outside of the Brotherhood?
Oh, absolutely. It was again open to the public from that perspective. Mm-hmm. But what you saw there was the dedication, where the invitation was specifically for the brothers. But then you had other representation there from Kappa Alpha Psi. To my understanding, I thought I saw a couple of Qs there. You saw some of the general public, some of the corporate sponsors that were mm-hmm, a part of mm-hmm. the organization as well. So it was an opportunity for everyone who had worked on that collective goal of raising this $120 million, in essence, for them to see the unveiling. So it was an awesome time.
But just to add to that, it was also an opportunity for individuals who have participated in the civil rights movement, or just in civil rights in general, for all Americans or individuals throughout the world, to come to that particular monument, because it's really a symbol of the civil rights movement.
Right. And unfortunately, that sometimes the civil rights movement isn't discussed a whole lot nowadays. In my mind, anyway, it just seems like it kind of has taken a back seat to other issues of the day. And it's interesting, especially with an African-American president. It's still, some folks aren't quite sure. I think I read a post on one of the websites about, I had never heard of King or words to that effect. And so we have a whole lot to do. I think there's a danger in us losing that civil rights string. Do you think that's the case?
Well, potentially it's a possibility, but I think if individuals, households, and families go and visit this particular monument, throughout the monument, various parts of the monument, there are quotes from Dr. King, various quotes that he made throughout his lifetime, targeting specific areas of concern for the civil rights movement. And I think those particular quotes will energize young people to go and find out and seek more information about not only Dr. King, but also the civil rights movement here in the United States.
Right. Richard, what do you think?
And I think, to piggyback off what Maurice has shared, is I think where it's getting convoluted is because, again, you hear the drum, so to say, that it's about human rights now versus civil rights. Mm. And I think it comes down to the individual household, just like Maurice has shared, is that how we impart that information to our particular generations moving forward will also help continue to create this legacy that he's created. It is a human rights issue, but for us as African Americans, it's always going to be a civil rights issue because of what we were fighting for.
Now, this monument can really be have an impact and maybe help keep this going, this idea about civil rights going. What do you think the impact of this monument will be down the road for generations to come?
Well, I think it's a symbol of hope. And sort of in one of the clips we saw out of this mountain of despair, hope, something along those lines. And I think it's a symbol of hope for individuals who are downtrodden, individuals who may be unemployed at this particular time, where you hear individuals talking about the Occupy movement. I think this monument stands as a symbol of hope for individuals who are pushing a rock uphill, but just to let you know that there's a potential that you can achieve your goal.
Right, right. You know, what's interesting, excuse me, what's interesting about the monument itself is that in all the pictures, you usually just see one part of it. You just see him, the king on the monument, but you don't see that wall of despair all the time. It's sort of always either in the background or not shown at all. And having been down there, that wall that the other piece is pulled out of is very powerful. I mean, you have to see them both to, I think, to really appreciate the impact.
Yeah, I would agree with you because I was really stunned, amazed by the size of the monument. It's really large with the granite and some of the marble that's around the monument. It's not only the figure of Dr. King, but it's also the other areas, and it's in one of the prime locations on the mall. And I was really pleased to see that. I think the committee did an excellent job in picking this site as well as erecting the monument.
Right.
And I'd like to piggyback off of that because as you go down to the monument, if you have not had an opportunity to see it, when you drive up on it, it's literally 3 pieces. And you see him coming up out of the 2, standing before it. Like Maurice said, it is a pillar of hope from that standpoint. But what really struck me was that he's looking out on the Potomac and seeing that reflection of that. And it's a beacon of hope in the way the sun is reflecting and setting in that particular area. It just gives you this awesome experience or feeling that regardless of what you're going through, regardless of what has happened to you in the past, your future can be brighter if you just move forward and just continue to focus on toward your goals.
Absolutely, and one of the things that I also thought was pretty interesting, and recently there's been a move to kind of fix one of the quotes on the memorial. I guess some folks, where it says, "I was a drum major for justice, peace, and righteousness," but there's some folks who were bothered by that because it made him sound very arrogant, and it was taken out of context. So now it's going to be, changed. If you want to say, "I was a drum major," and it kind of puts him back where he belongs as more of a humble servant than somebody who's going to take charge. And I was wondering, did you guys have any feelings on that? Did you think maybe this was molehill was being made into a mountain, or do you think it was the appropriate thing to do?
I would concur with your synopsis that it is a molehill being made out of a mountain from my perspective. I think that Dr. King, Brother King, he was not arrogant at all. I think that he had a level of assurance, a level of comfort as to where he wanted to go with the civil rights movement. I think, again, with the curator and the individuals that were trying to pull this together, to put his entire quote on that particular piece of marble would have been astronomical in essence to do that. I think they were looking to sum it up to catch the essence of who he was and what he was trying to accomplish. And I thought that it did that. And again, going down and having seen it, have gone several times, have taken my family, have taken groups. That's not the impression that people walk away with that I have been in conversation with.
Mm-hmm.
And I would agree with Richard, and I think the individuals who had concerns about the quote, I can't suggest that they're misplaced. I would just say that Dr. King stands for more than just quotes. For generations who are unfamiliar with Dr. King, that may be an issue, but I think with the information that's available at the monument itself, the store that's there, you can find out more about Dr. King. So if this conversation is going to entice individuals to seek out more knowledge about Dr. King, then let's have the conversation. But at the end of the day, I think we need to move forward and see the monument as just a symbol.
Right, right. The mission statement on the monument website says that it's to commemorate the life and work of Dr. Martin Luther King, Jr. by leading a collaborative funding, design, and construction process in the creation of a memorial to honor his national and international contributions to world peace through nonviolent social change. Does it do that?
Absolutely. If you go down to the monument, as I said I have done, just to walk throughout the environment, to read his words on that granite, and as I said, the way it's designed, it brings a level of peace, regardless of what you have gone through. I was born in the 60s, so I have experienced a little bit of what has happened with Jim Crow and segregation. So it calms you. It allows you to understand, regardless of what you've been through, there is hope that we will be better as a people.
Maurice?
I would agree with Richard. Going to the monument, again, it's a symbol. It's a symbol of the civil rights movement. And being there, having an opportunity to sit in some of the reflection areas throughout the monument, it does bring a calming spirit. And I think that's one of the reasons why the organization decided to move forward with the weekend, because so many people had made a way to get there for that particular weekend. And going back to what I originally said, it's just one of those things where we weren't going to be turned around, sort of like the marchers in the civil rights movement. We weren't going to be stopped. And also going back to the issue with the quote, it's like the quote isn't going to stop us from having this symbolic representation on the mall.
Right, and one of the calming things about the monument too, there's the waterfalls where the quotes, many of the quotes are going, and it's between that and the cherry blossoms, and it's just it can be a very peaceful place to be, even though there are a lot of folks there. It can really be a very nice, a very good, peaceful place to be. Now we talked briefly about the involvement of Alpha Phi Alpha, and as the driving force for the building and constructing the monument. Let's take a listen to Reverend Bernice King, Dr. King's daughter, and thanking you brothers for what you did.
For everything that you have done, the sacrifices that you have made. We thank Brother Harry Johnson and the Memorial Foundation for their tireless efforts, and for all of those who supported this monument in any form or fashion, all of the contributors, corporate contributors, but we thank every individual contributor who found a way to donate to this memorial to make this a possibility. So let us all just give a hand, first to you all, Alpha Brothers, and then to Mr. Harry Johnson and the Memorial Foundation and all of the contributors to this great foundation. Thank you very much for your work.
I was wondering, in your opinion, what is the significance of this monument, having it dedicated to being the first monument on the mall dedicated to a person who is not a president and a person of color, an African American? Richard?
Well, I think the significance for me is that it gives an opportunity for my children, the next generation, to understand and to see that perseverance, having a goal, having determination to want to change a people and to change society does pay off. Who's to say that what was set as far as the trajectory of putting only presidents on the mall was the right thing to do? The right thing to do was to honor individuals and people, I think, that have changed the America. And Brother Martin changed America.
Certainly did.
And I think, for me, this having the monument shows how far the country has come in certain areas, how far we're willing to accept individuals, accept diversity, diversity at this particular site. But it also says that this is a symbol of hope as to where the country will go in the future. And I just think that's something that we should all reflect upon and find the goodness in that particular issue with the mall. I mean, with the monument.
Right. Yeah, this monument seems to have a lot of great sense of responsibility to it, and people are looking for a lot of things from it, and that indicates how powerful it is, how important it is to many folks. I was wondering about the dedication, the week going back to October 16th, when the monument was dedicated. What was your most memorable moment from there?
For me, it was just an opportunity to be with other members of Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated, but not just the members, but also other contributors, individuals who contributed to the mall, the monument financially, either contributing by asking other individuals to contribute to the mall, to the monument, just going there, being with other workers. Some individuals didn't have any money to give, but they actually participated in the civil rights movement. And seeing some of those individuals there during that particular day in August, it was priceless.
Yeah.
Well, that's a tough question, but it's a good question. I think for me, and like Maurice said, the camaraderie with the brothers. But the most important, again, when walking up on to the mall and seeing those 3 pieces of marble and him coming out of that, it's just breathtaking. I mean, there's nothing else that you can say about it, whether you believed in the movement or you didn't. It's just an awesome sight to see. And again, just the way they designed it, in essence, for you to walk through it, to reflect on your own individual situation as to what you're doing, in essence, to improve the life of people.
Yeah, was there a sense of, yeah, we did this?
Oh, definitely. Absolutely. There was a pride in it to say that collectively these brothers came together with others that are not necessarily brothers, but we came together for a collective purpose to make something happen, and truly the outcome of it was awesome.
You know, one of the interesting things that I remember about the weekend, it was actually during the dedication process as we began the walk from the area where you initially saw on the screen where there was a reviewing area where there were various speakers, and then we walked down the street to the actual monument itself. And during that particular walk, you know, all of the Alphas are walking, and there were other individuals in the area visiting some of the other monuments there, and all of a sudden they just moved to the side and allowed the Alphas to walk down the street as a group. And I heard individuals who didn't know any of us, but they were shouting out congratulatory messages to us, and these individuals started clapping for us. It was men, women, people of color, non-people of color, small children, and maybe the children didn't really know why they were clapping as much as the adults, but you still saw that there was a sense, like Richard said, of yes, this is something that we did, and this is one of those moments where we were proud not only as members of Alpha Phi Alpha, but also as members of the African American community.
Now, have you guys gone back? Well, you mentioned that you have gone back several times.
Several times. I've taken a church group with me, some of my staff, which I had to let them see it and expose them to it. I've taken my family back to it, and it's just an awesome thing to see. So I would say to everyone, go out and see it at least once.
And how about you? Have you been back?
I have not had an opportunity to go back, but it is something that I hope to do before the summer rush.
Right. It gets pretty busy around that time. And watch out for parking. That's the other thing too. You just make sure you plan ahead of time, because it's a great monument to see. It's a great way to memorialize Dr. King and his efforts there.
Absolutely.
So I'd like to thank you both for joining us here at Del Val Now. Richard and Maurice.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rob.
Thank you for coming, and thank you all for watching. My name is Al Hunter Jr. Thank you, and good night.